Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if Deku got harem with Nana Shimura Lemon. Nana had known Izuku for 3 years. In that time her opinion of him changed drastically several times. Take, for instance, their first meeting when Izuku asked if he could be a hero while still being quirkless. Her first thought was to answer no. Although her mentor, the man who gave her the incredible power of one for all and became an incredible hero, started as quirkless. She pitied the boy and earnestly wished the best for him, but she couldn't full-heartedly tell him he could become a hero. However, he changed her mind just hours later by selflessly saving a boy who she later would find out was a horrible bully to him, yet he ran in to save him without a second thought. That event, which left her in complete awe, planted a seed within her mind, but putting that aside, her opinion instantly changed. She couldn't see him as just some little boy who wanted to be a hero and got an unfair chance instead. She realized he was a brave, golden-hearted young man who was destined to be a hero. After helping him, she couldn't have been more eager to train him to prepare him to receive one for all. Sure, he cried really easily, but at the end of the day, he always pulled through. He trained his ass off, always made the quota of disposing of the garbage, abided by the meal plan, and even went so far as to stack on extra training. She absolutely loved doting on the young man. He was eager for praise and advice, and her status as his personal favorite hero and idol made her comments especially impactful. And she was just as eager to give that praise. Nana found herself casually patting his back, hugging him, and sitting close to him whenever he was taking a break. By the end of the 10-month training period, Nana was comfortable yet embarrassed to admit that she deeply cared for Izuku. If she were a little tipsy, she would probably say she loved him as if he were her own son. Time passed as time does, and again, Izuku proved himself. He proved his heroism and drive in the entrance exam, he proved his quick thinking with the assessments, and he proved his leadership skills and strategist skills at the infamous USJ event, and a million other instances just like that. And each time he proved himself like this, Nana thanked her lucky stars she met Izuku and felt blessed to pass down one for all to him. However, over time with these events, Nana found herself repealing her intimate behavior. The small touches, closeness, and going out of her way to praise him began to slowly die off. By the time the war on AFO was finally over, Nana practically found herself reclused from Izuku, despite their closeness on the field. When explained like that, one would think that the reason would be that Nana had grown less fond of or had grown tired of Izuku. Perhaps she was jealous of him, or intimidated, or even hated him. However, the truth was embarrassing. It was because over time, starting since the day Izuku saved Bakugo from the slime monster, Nana had found herself becoming Izuku's #1 fangirl. She couldn't help herself, he was so cool, strong, and brilliant. His quirk analysis, strategy, quirk application, and quick thinking skills were all amazing. He had grown in leaps and bounds since they had met, facing every challenge with a pure and brave heart, and a heroic demeanor. He beat up villains most heroes she knew would struggle with, such as Muscular, Lady Nagant, Overhaul, her mentor Toshinori's own grandson Shigaraki, and even All for One himself. Hell, even some lesser villains like Gentle Criminal and La Brava were tricky opponents, which highlighted his mental prowess too. It wasn't just that either, she kept getting instances of Izuku's selflessness and kindness. He lived to please people such as his friends, and especially little Eri, who he treated as a surrogate little sister. She would be kidding you not if she said that she swooned to see him acting so kindly to the little girl he helped rescue. And on top of all that, she got a front row seat to watching him get cuter, more handsome, and buffer over these years. Nana adored Izuku. Randomly seeing him in the halls made her freeze with nerves as she began blushing. Her powerful legs would buckle beneath her whenever he smiled, and her entire body quivered when he so much as said hi or good morning. He would walk by, talking and laughing with his friends, and Nana would hold her breath as she watched him pass, before exhaling profoundly and outright squealing to herself with delight, saying he's so cool. Sometimes she was ashamed of herself for it. For one, she acted like a middle schooler who had a crush on her senpai. And two, she would tell herself it felt wrong to feel this way for him. She was practically a mother to him. Such as today, when her mind was split into two halves. One was gushing over how hot Izuku looked after a King of the Hill style exercise, which led to Izuku shirtlessly beating up most of his classmates. The other side was weakly protesting, saying she should only feel proud of him instead of thirsting after him. But still Izuku's sweaty, scarred abs and powerful arms made a very compelling argument. There was a moment of clarity, however, when she realized that she was the main reason he got to be so buff and be able to stand there, towering over his classmates like a truly dominant warrior. It also symbolized his near future as the #1 hero, a man who would be standing over all the others. Dominant. Powerful. Cool. Nana loved using that word to describe Izuku. He was amazing and stroked a sense of awe, wonder, and passion inside her, not to mention a sense of lust from time to time. There was likely a much better word to describe such a feeling, but the word cool felt so much nicer. She came into her penthouse with a small sigh and placed her things aside. She decided to stay as a teacher at UA until Izuku graduated. It was nice, as it gave her something to do with her days, along with the privilege of helping raise the newer generations of heroes. After dropping off her things, she grabbed a single soda before going into her room. The lights were off and the curtains were shut, which left the room vaguely silhouetted, and she casually flipped the switch as she closed the door behind her. Besides some nice furnishings, TV, and some binders on her desk for organizing papers for her teaching job, one major thing stuck out about her room: all the green. The bed sheets, blankets, and rug were all a very specific shade of the same green, which was also the same as Izuku's hair. In Izuku's second year, after Izuku, or rather, Deku, had become wildly popular, there was a massive influx of brand dealings. Everyone everywhere wanted a little piece of Deku, which Nana, admittedly, felt kinda jealous of. Long story short, Deku had practically become a household name. The amount of merchandise that was produced in such a short period of time was only matched by her own and her predecessors. All of this just to say that Nana had collected all of it. Because he was so young, Nana offered to take up the job of merch deals and marketing, and give him some coaching when he was free, which meant she got to demand a free copy of every figurine, poster, and clothing item with the Deku brand on it, even the stuff that got cancelled mid-production. Nana threw herself over her bed and instinctively grabbed a Deku cushion, a comfy, massive plushie that had the shape of Izuku's head inside his mask. She pulled it to her chest and hugged it with her knees too, then rolled onto her back while clinging to it. Meanwhile, she was still thinking about Izuku while hugging her pillow. She stopped the mental argument to look around her room for a moment and thought, wow, it would be so embarrassing to bring Izuku in here. Then, she began blushing profusely and giggled to herself. She felt dirty just thinking about it and felt her face burning with excitement and embarrassment. Hee, how cool would it be to have Izuku in a room with me? Nana allowed herself to linger on the thought for a few moments, imagining having Izuku over, sitting on her couch or her bed, getting closer to her, and thanking her. She rolled over onto her knees and squeaked excitedly. If anything, she would be thanking him to stay at her place. It would have been an incredible privilege to have him over. She lay forward on her cushion, then kicked her legs up and began eagerly kicking them back and forth in the air. Her heart was racing with excitement, so the kicking was almost like how a puppy's tail wagged outside of her own volition when they were excited. She loved the thought of having some private time with him. She longed to know how Izuku felt about her. She had to face the fact that she may have already missed her shot. Granted, she knew Izuku was a big fan of her, but that came with its own set of fears, such as, would he ever see me as something else? Would he think it's weird? Was he too cool to be my fan anymore? All of them had a spate of irrationality to it, but all of them were highly concerning and valid in her own mind. She slumped against the bed with a small, discontented whine as her chest weighed down and ached with sadness. But more than all of that, Izuku could have just outright not been interested in her, or had a girlfriend already. Then, she scoffed and turned her head to the side to place her cheek against the cushion. No, that's ridiculous. A guy like Izuku would have at least 5 girlfriends by now. Now that she thought about it, that could be underselling it. He had 6 female classmates who got to see and work with him every single day, so they were all definitely with him. Then there are heroes he teamed up with like Maruko and MT Lady, that support course girl Hatsum, and the upperclassmen he was introduced to, like Nijai or Hato, that was at least 10 girlfriends. Maybe he'd be open for an 11th if she ever worked up the nerve to actually talk to him. Then, she had a moment of clarity and shook her head. She just assumed he was going out with almost a dozen women and was getting depressed off that thought. So she just took a deep breath and finally laid back in bed. She turned on the television as she laid back and didn't even bother to put on pajamas or more comfortable clothes. Instead, she just absent-mindedly watched whatever was on while her mind was busy with what it was always busy with: Izuku. All she thought about anymore was Izuku. All she wanted was Izuku. Everything she did at this point of her life was for Izuku. Her insides began to ache again, although this time, it was warm and pleasant. Nana whined to herself and bit her lip as the aching continued until she finally gave in. She brought the cushion up with one arm and reached down with the other, slowly slipping into her pants and making herself sob softly. Izuku. Nana had a foolproof plan. It was simple and straightforward, yes, but completely foolproof. She was going to ask out Izuku. Well, not really, you see. Her plan was to congratulate Izuku for his exemplary performance in UA, and his heroic acts over the years, and offer to treat him to dinner. Being the #1 heroine came with some hefty checks, and Nana was pleased to think to herself that she could treat him to anything he liked. Now, of course, came the difficult part of actually talking to Izuku. She bathed and used her most expensive shampoo and body wash, some high-end lotion, and spent about an hour trying to decide what her best suit was: something flattering and cute, while also being appropriate for work, before deciding on a black suit with a matching skirt, and a pair of her yellow gloves and boots with black stockings to pair with them. She knew Izuku loved her hero suit, so she decided to play into the look to earn some points with him, along with putting her hair up in a ponytail just like her hero days. Afterward, she spent some time in the mirror, admiring herself while wondering if it would really be enough. Izuku was sure to like it, but she needed him to love it, or everything was doomed. Finally, she realized she was about to be late to work, and sped out the door while forcing down her doubts, just ignoring them instead of actually getting rid of them, and feeling them become ever more present and domineering as she came closer to UA. She didn't see him at all until it was time for their class, and she nervously strolled into the room. Her hands were joined in front of her waist, and she kept her head down as she blushed and strolled into the room. She took longer than normal to even greet the class, as she was staring straight down onto the podium. Finally, her body twitched uncontrollably as she looked up and addressed the class, taking a moment to look over at Izuku, and he was eyeing her. He got to see her from the side from his seat, which allowed him to look her up and down with his eyes widened and his mouth slightly opened. Yes, 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 she squealed internally, feeling her entire body heating up with pleasure and delight. He likes it, he really, really likes it. I feel like I could faint. Finally, Nana noticed that Izuku looked up to her face, and he and the entire class looked slightly concerned. Nana blushed harder and coughed into her fist. Sorry about that, class. I allowed my mind to wander a little too far. Anyway, back to our class plan. The exhilaration and euphoria she felt from Izuku's pleased, passionate gaze kept her on cloud 9 for the entire class period. She felt like she were weightless, like a young heroine again floating through the skies blissfully. Well, he is a young, healthy, strapping young man, she purred to herself at the end of the class. He probably just can't help himself around a woman he's attracted to. She trembled with delight at the thought that Izuku found her attractive. Finally, as the class was pouring out for lunch, she found herself staying behind along with Izuku and his friend, and theoretical first girlfriend of Tenochako Uraraka. Nana meant to talk to Izuku later at the dorms, but with an opportunity like this, Nana forced herself to stop longingly stare at him like a crushing schoolgirl and clap her hands over her cheeks. She stood up from the podium and kept looking at Izuku while blushing. She bit her lip and chewed it for a moment. Ochako laughed at something he said and came closer to his side, which made Nana's eyes widen. She was screaming at herself to make a move and make it quickly, but found herself biting her lip on instinct. The anxiety made her gut squirm and tighten, along with the heat rising throughout her entire body. Finally, she walked around the podium and cleared her throat. Midoriya, do you have a moment? The two teens stopped talking and turned to her. Ochako smiled, then patted Izuku's shoulder. I'll see you at lunch, Deku. Bye. Goodbye, Miss Shimura, she said politely, before excusing herself and leaving the classroom. Izuku smiled at Nana. One would think his smiles would have gotten more casual around her, but the fact that Nana had been detaching herself from him over the years only made him more eager to see her, maybe more so than in his first year. On top of that, it was absolutely adorable. She found herself mentally squealing with delight and kicking her feet like an eager schoolgirl. Somehow Izuku and his brilliant smile was a perfect mix of cute, handsome, and hot. Not a third cute, a third handsome, and a third hot. It was more like 1,000% in each category, leading to an overwhelming 3,000% of attractiveness. She was freezing up again, so she had to mentally slap her head straight. Well, Midoriya, I just wanted to ask why you something. It's not so important, but I just felt as though I'd ask. Izuku nodded in understanding and smiled as he crossed his arms. I'm sure it is, just feel free to ask. Besides, it's always nice to get to talk to you, Ms. Shimura, especially since we haven't in a little while. Nana felt her chest fall horribly, leaving a cold and stony pit inside her. She felt horrible for it, but instantly vowed that she was going to make it right. Well, how would you like to go out to dinner with me, Izuku? Izuku just stared at her and blinked as his mind began to catch up. What? Nana went completely rigid at his sudden response and held her breath, before finally forcing herself to nod. Why, yes, you see, since your first year, I've noticed that you've simply blown my expectations out of the water. Now that she was actually talking, she found the words forming an avalanche and just rapidly pouring from her lips. You've impressed me over and over again, and each time I look away and look back, I swear I see you standing a little taller, so I want to reward you for all your efforts. Izuku looked at her for a few moments longer, before finally snapping out of it and smiling. Yeah, of course, that sounds wonderful, although I have to ask, there are a few others, even in this class, that did the same kind of thing. I mean, look at Todoroki or Yaoyorozu, they started off impressively, and by now? He gave a short whistle of astonishment, clearly impressed. I'm lucky to even stand alongside them. The same applies to everyone else too. Nana resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Of course, her Izuku was much stronger than all of them. He even proved it by beating everyone senseless the other day, but alright. She instead giggled and waved the comment off. True. But not everyone has the same kind of heart you do, the heart that made me pass on one for all to you in the first place. And on that note, not everyone is my beloved pupil. Beloved? He asked, before Nana had even realized she said it, which made her face instantly turn red as she wished to crawl under a rock. I get it, and I feel the same way, Ms. Shimura. Why, you do? Nana gasped, standing up and placing her hand over her chest. Izuku stood up as well and smiled, before placing his hands over her shoulders, which made her knees buckle while her entire body shivered with delight. Yeah, and before she realized what was happening, Izuku was hugging her around the waist and resting his head against her. I'm like a beloved son to you, and you're like a mom to me. Wow, it feels good to finally get that off my chest, he confessed with a small laugh. Nana was completely stunned and couldn't bring herself to move. On one hand, she just got booted into the most nefarious zone possible, the mom zone. But on the other, Izuku was hugging her. She was so happy she felt like she could die. Finally, she hugged Izuku back, biting her lip so hard she felt like it was going to bleed. Why, yes, that's what I meant. Thank you, Izuku. He pulled away after about another minute and hiked his backpack onto his shoulders. Sorry for doing that so suddenly, but it's been so long I kinda couldn't help myself anyway. I'll call you later, and we can pick something. How's that sound? Nana nodded. That sounds fine. Now, go enjoy lunch with your friends, Izuku. Thank you for your time. It's no problem, I'm really happy we got to talk one-on-one again. Bye, Ms. Shimura. I'll talk to you later, he said, giving her one last quick hug before speeding off. Nana waved him off and waited until he closed the door behind him, then waited again for about a minute longer before she sat down at Izuku's seat with a massive sigh. She dropped her head to the table and sniffled, feeling as though she were about to cry, but instead just wallowed in the feeling for a few minutes until she finally whispered something to herself. He smells like strawberries, she sighed dreamily, before squealing excitedly and scuffling her feet against the ground. Nana was going to die. Fighting all for one wasn't nearly scary as this was, for a number of reasons. Primarily because against AFO, she had lots of experience, indomitable power, and her own cleverness to beat him with, but now? She had absolutely zero experience. She was like a puppy being left alone in the midst of a wolf-ridden forest. All the power and years under her belt meant absolutely nothing. She and Izuku had texted back and forth for what felt like hours right after school ended. She wanted, more than anything, to take this opportunity to spoil him. So, of course, she just complimented whatever he said and insisted anything was fine, to which he said, well, if anything at all is fine, I've always kind of wanted to visit your place, as long you wouldn't mind, of course. The moment she read it she felt like she would blush hard enough to faint, and automatically begged said it was okay, and they would just order something for delivery. And so here she was, waiting alone in her living room while breathlessly waiting for his arrival. She'd been through her entire wardrobe and every self-care product in her bathroom, even from the expensive million-yen gala dresses to her finest sweatsuits. Even now she was on the very edge of her cushion, wondering if she would be able to change into something else fast enough. She also wanted to ask Izuku what he would be wearing so she could try and match his level, but she couldn't articulate a sentence even in her own mind to make it not sound creepy. Finally, she decided to at least slip into a cozier black cotton dress with her black stockings from earlier. Nana couldn't even focus on the TV while she waited. Her mind was focused completely on Izuku, which blurred and drowned out everything else in the whole world. She was still suffering from her giddiness. She was like a schoolgirl again, knowing her crush was on their way to see her, only amplified by 10 since he was coming to her home to see her. That fact was ringing in her mind constantly, never letting her nerves cool for a single moment. So, she did the best thing she could do, and made a mental rulebook so she wouldn't ruin the night, or heaven forbid, ruin her relationship with Izuku. She will not make a move on him, no matter how tempting. She was unfortunately aware of how she stood with him. They would not have any alcohol. She would not mention relationships or love at all, not only because of her own loveless life, but because hearing Izuku talking about his 20 girlfriends would shatter her spirit, and the very most important rule of all, that he must not, under any circumstance at all, enter her bedroom. Just the thought made her tremble with fear. She was so deep in her thoughts that the knocking at the door sounded like a gunshot, making her jump in her seat. "Oh, see coming." Nana leaped onto her feet and frantically brushed the front and sides of her dress, angsting and mumbling to herself nervously as she skittered to the door. For the first time, being a hero helped with her romantic endeavors, her ability to act without thinking, and she opened the door wide to greet Izuku, giving her body a rush of energy and sense of bravado. Then Izuku, with his bright eyes and eager smile, said Miss Shimura, and all of that bravery went straight to hell. Especially when she saw what he was wearing. He landed on a perfect spot between formal and collie, handsome ironed, personable black pants, a green plaid button-up, and it looked like he even took the time to clean his shoes just to be presentable. And of course, he was smiling just as handsomely as ever. She felt her knees buckling again, so she had to use the door as a crutch as she smiled back. "Izuku, it's good to see you again, outside of the classroom, I mean. Please come in," she offered, then stood aside and beckoned him in. "Thank you," he said, leaving his shoes at the entrance, then began looking around with a sense of wonder. "Wow, you have an amazing home, Miss Shimura. It's actually pretty surreal to even be here." Since Izuku was looking away, Nana took a moment to hold her forehead against the door as her legs quaked violently beneath the weight of her nerves, before she finally pulled away again. Thank you, I try to keep it nice and tidy." "Please, have a seat wherever you'd like." He took a seat on the couch, and Nana felt her heart throbbing with excitement when she saw his face, still looking around in adoration. He looks so cute and innocent like that, I can't take it." She forced herself out of it as he looked her way and smiled. Would you like something to drink, Izuku?" "Oh, sure. What do you have?" Nana practically dashed to the fridge. "Well, I have juice, cola." There was wine too, but she forced herself to stop so she wouldn't say it in a fit of nervous rambling. "Some soda sounds nice, if you wouldn't mind," he asked politely. Nana poured 2 cups for them with ice, making sure to do it slowly so she wouldn't drop it with all her jittering. "Oh, I didn't know you liked things like this, Miss Shimura." "Oh yeah, Then she stopped. She hadn't actually been paying attention to what she was watching. It could have been a documentary about sea creatures, cartoons, or a compilation of funerals for all she knew. She stopped and actually looked to check, and realized it was the worst possible outcome. A romantic comedy. She stuttered, stopping completely dead in her tracks. What do you think of them?" "Me? Well, my mom watched them a lot when I was younger, so they've become kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I've actually been meaning to watch this one after Yayarozu recommended it to me," he said with a small shrug. "Right, girlfriend number 4," Nana thought helplessly, finally coming to the couch and handing Izuku his drink as he thanked her. I see. Do you two watch these kind of things often? He shrugged again. Kind of. She likes dramas and darker things, more adult, really. And I can appreciate a good story like that from time to time, but I like these stories more. Romantic comedies with unexpected, happy endings. Unexpected? Nana asked, now finding herself paying more attention to the screen. Yeah. Like, the goal for the main character is usually to get with their love interest and something else too, like getting the career of their dreams or meeting a large goal at the very beginning. And in the end they find themselves in a good spot, but not the one they envisioned. Oh, I see, that's actually really interesting, Nana said with a slow, short nod. It sounded lovely to her. She would have to accept that Izuku wouldn't love her back, and she may never feel at her best because of it. But maybe, just maybe, she could fully rekindle the relationship they had, where Nana was a motherly mentor who loved to dote on him, while he was her star student who blew all her expectations out of the water. The thought alone made her heart flutter yet ache at once, a bittersweet fairy tale ending. It kind of reminds me of my first year at U.A, you know? I always imagined myself going and thriving, but nothing could have prepared me for how it all went down, and all of it really is because of you. Because of me? Nana turned to face Izuku after pulling herself from her thoughts, but then realized that Izuku moved over and cut the space between them by half. Of course, where would I be without you, Miss Shimura? I would have been in the general course, or the support course if I really lucked out. He said with a small laugh, leaning in even further while Nana's body stiffened in anxiety and excitement. He's close, he's so close. I lied to myself, I can't do this, she fretted, forcing herself to put her cup down so she wouldn't drop it and instead clenched her thighs. I'm gonna have a heart attack. Thank you, Izuku, but when we really get down to it, all the good things that come your way are because you've earned them. Nana praised him, which led to him laughing and making Nana's heart skip a beat again. I guess so, but I still owe you quite a bit, he said with a shrug. Nana snorted and waved dismissively. Stop it. No, I'm serious. He started looking intense, and her heart began clenching and beating harder in her chest, making her chest feel so tight it was a genuine struggle to breathe. There has to be some way I can pay you back, even if just a little bit. Nana tried to inhale, but instead only made an odd whining noise she was so ashamed of that she had to force herself away just to compose herself. No. See, calm down, breathe, you old hag. It took a full minute longer, but she finally pulled her hand slightly away from her mouth and spoke up in a quiet, high-pitched squeak. Well, start by telling me what we should order. I'd be fine with whatever you're hungry for, Miss Shimura. He answered simply. Okay. Next, drop any notion you have of paying me back or whatever. And Izuku shortly huffed, which made her squeal internally again. Why should I? I don't mean this negatively at all, Miss Shimura, but I'm not really a kid anymore. I just turned 18, and I'm going to graduate to be a real hero soon. I should be making sure I pay my debts in full. Nana took a moment, before deeply sighing and shaking her head, then looking at him with a fond and gentle smile. I know. I haven't thought of you as a kid in years, and you've always been a real hero, at least to me. Just as the words came out, she felt a considerable weight coming off her chest and letting her breathe more clearly. Izuku beamed happily, almost like an eager puppy. Do you really think that? Nana nodded. After all this time of adoring him, it sometimes slipped her mind that she was his idol too. You've always had a #1 fangirl in me, Izuku, she confessed, blushing deeper than ever while Izuku smiled wider. The pair kept staring at each other as the television played soundlessly. Nana felt her admiration, love, and passion boiling inside her, feeding off the moment and intensifying 100-fold faster than Nana could hardly comprehend. I'm gonna go order our food now, she suddenly blurted out, before jumping to her feet. She was already struggling to not pant rapidly, before scurrying into the kitchen. The moment his line of sight was broken, she stopped and clenched the counter with all of her might. Her legs felt like a stack of cards holding up a boulder, and her arms weren't holding up much better. What was I doing? Why were my lips moving before I even thought of the excuse to order food? Was I about to confess? What's the matter with me? It took a little while longer, but Nana was finally able to compose herself enough to order delivery, then spend another few minutes alone just to calm down enough to come back out. Sorry for the wait, Izuku. It's okay, are you feeling well? Why yeah, I just don't have many guests here, so I guess I'm acting pretty nervous, huh? She asked with a bit of a forced laugh. Oh, okay well, as long as you're feeling fine. He replied with a small shrug. They kept watching the movie in relative silence. It was a pretty good movie, and Izuku carried most of the conversations, mostly about observations of the movie or other movies it reminded him of, which he recommended to Nana. Nana, meanwhile, just worked off responding to Izuku while trying her best to be composed. The amount of tension in her body was taking away some enjoyment from the movie. Oh, Miss Shimura? Would it be okay if I went to get a refill? Oh, of course you can feel free to have anything of mine, Izuku. She offered gently while Izuku thanked her and went to the kitchen. Izuku looked more than cheery as he walked. Frankly, he was afraid that over the years he and Nana's relationship was dying out, and may eventually be outright non-existent, but the invitation meant she felt the same, and he figured that whatever the reason was out of her control. Well, of course, he could have done more to make it work as well, so he couldn't help but feel a bitter sense of self-depreciation, but he decided to push all of that aside. Their relationship was healing, they had something new to bond over, and they finally had a few free hours all to themselves, so there was nothing he had to complain about at the moment. He hummed to himself as he put the soda away, but once he picked up his cup and looked over, he stopped when he saw Nana peeking over the doorframe while looking nervous. Oh, what's up, Miss Shimura? Is something wrong? And nothing really, I just wanted to tell you something. Izuku couldn't help but chuckle politely. It feels like you've been saying that a lot recently. Please, go ahead. What's up? She opened her mouth to speak, but seemed to cower behind the doorframe for a moment. We've gotten pretty close, haven't we? And since I call you Izuku, why you can feel free to call me by my given name too. Izuku paused and perked up after a moment, before smiling again. Really? That sounds nice, but I assume only when we're in private, right, Nana? Nana shivered as her face got even redder. Why yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Izuku. She leapt back for the couch, and Izuku let out a small and fond sigh. Izuku took his cup back into the living room, and sat right next to Nana, so that his side was pressing gently against her, and felt her body get rigid. Thank you again for letting me come over, Nana. This is great. Nana slowly nodded. This is really nice, Izuku, he asked, looking away from the TV. I'm sorry. Izuku tilted his head slightly. For what? Oh, over the few years we've known each other, I can't help but feel like we drifted apart. And that's completely my fault. I felt horrible about it when I fully realized how bad I had gotten. She focused more on the screen, trying her hardest to not look him in the face out of pure shame. That's why I wanted to be with you tonight. Nana finished with a deep, shaky sigh. She had partially forgotten to breathe as she explained herself, and just tried leaving it there, and she would have, if not for Izuku suddenly closing the distance between them and hugging her from the side. She should have felt flattered and touched. But instead, her eyes shot open again in shock as she began blushing harder than ever. The hug earlier was quick and friendly, but this time he didn't pull away. Izuku's so big, his arms and body feel so solid and strong. He's not even blushing or flustered at all. He's awesome. He's so cool. It's fine, Nana, we've both been busy for a while now. The fact that you were thinking of me during all of that makes up for all of it 100 times over. He promised, leaning in further while hugging her tighter. Her side was pressing against the wall of muscle that was Izuku's body, making her shiver a little while trying to restrain herself. His strawberry smell was back, and while being so close to him for so long, she could make out his heavy, natural scent too. Wait, this is bad, isn't it? This is the kind of position for L lovers, or at the very least boyfriends and G girlfriends, but it's so nice here. He's so strong, big, and manly. I feel so safe being held by him. Due to her own nerves, the pair found themselves in the same position for a long while longer, enough that the movie had gone from the middle of the second act to the climactic kiss at the end of the third act, leading into the couple a few years later when they were getting married inside a restaurant they owned together in front of all the patrons, with an obvious baby bump beneath the leading lady's dress. Izuku made a small hum, although Nana couldn't see his expression. Why you would make a really great husband, Izuku? She said awkwardly in desperation to break the silence between them. Do you really think so? I heard it was really hard for some people to have stable relationships and be heroes too. But I guess if I learned anything over the years, it would be to actually balance the two out. He said with a shrug, before chuckling to himself. If I ever got married, I'd want it to be with a person who would be able to stop me from backsliding to the way I was, especially around the time I left UA. Nana nodded. It was a problem she faced too. She would never want to admit it, but Nana really wanted to be a mom, but it never happened. It was part of the reason she loved doting on Izuku and being a teacher so much, to scratch that physiological itch of longing to experience motherhood. Kinda like how you did, Nana. She took a moment to catch up, before looking up to him. If I ever got married, I would want to be with someone who would help me make sure I don't backslide into my bad hero habits. Like you. Nana stared at him in pure shock, holding her mouth open blankly for a few moments before forcing herself into a fit of awkward, strained laughter. Like me? Oh Izuku, that'd be I am like an old lady. No, you're not. Even if you are older than me, it's not the deterrent you might think it is. He said with a shrug. In fact, if I date or get married, I'd prefer to be with an older woman. Nana squirmed against Izuku and held her head down, not trusting herself to open her mouth after a comment like that. He had to have known what he implied. Even if he didn't know she had a crush on him, he was still outright flirting with her, and it was great. This was probably how he managed to snag those 20-plus girlfriends. So how about you? If you don't mind me asking, what's your type? Izuku asked, quickly shifting the one and placing more pressure on her heart and mind. Green hair, tall, muscular, handsome, sweet, heroic, freckled, smart, and charismatic. That's what she wanted to blurt out, but she just awkwardly laughed again. Oh, me? I don't think about it very often. I guess I like guys who are really nice. As long as he has great character, I couldn't care less about looks or body type. Izuku nodded after a moment. Oh, I see. You're a bit shy. A bit unfair of me to ask you that without telling you my own preferences, right? What? That's a perfectly reasonable answer, Nana spluttered, to which Izuku shrugged again and smirked a little. You're just a pretty bad liar, Nana. So if I told you mine, would you tell me yours? Nana's lips tightened a little further, but after she thought about it she finally nodded. Maybe she could come up with a reasonable enough lie, like pretty boys or short foreigners, or maybe guys with long hair and tattoos. Okay. Well, I like fit, curvy women with long, dark hair and a beautiful face. Also, I'd like someone who enjoys long, peaceful times together. Like hour-long meals and a nice silence, reading in the living room, cuddling under the sheets, that kind of thing. He answered, slowly beginning to rub Nana's arm up and down. Then there are some other things which are nice, like being on the more muscular side, being really smart, having a few cute mannerisms, things like that. He let it all sink in for a moment, before hugging her just a bit harder. Do you know anyone like that? Momo wa Yaoyorozu? Nana guessed. Besides the muscular part, the description fitted pretty well for her. Izuku took a moment, before she suddenly felt his hand under her chin, making her gasp slightly as he led her gaze towards him. She stared into his eyes, shaking nervously as her heart beat even faster. Okay, it's your turn, Nana. What's your type? The way he said her name made her shiver from head to toe, making her insides tremble a little. I like big, strong men who makes a great, cool hero. She answered, finding herself wholly unable to lie while Izuku had her like this. She found herself completely lightheaded, with her heart pounding loudly in her ears. Guy who's caring, sweet, and awesome, that's the kind of man I love, Nana finished, her breath now more of a weak mule as she melted into Izuku's grasp. She didn't even notice he was bringing her closer until he was finally kissing her. Izuku, oh my god, it's really happening, he's kissing me, he really, really loves me, she squealed to herself, feeling completely stunned as he pressed into her further. Wait, I've never done this before, but he's kissing me so well, oh god, it feels so good, I've never been so happy in my life, she sobbed into his mouth almost like a purr. She didn't notice she was crying until her tears began smearing against their cheeks, but Izuku continued kissing her without a hint of pause. Ding! Izuku finally stopped when the doorbell rang and pulled away a little, smiling as Nana was left panting, mewling, and trembling. "I'll get it, okay?" Nana was left without hope of resisting or even thinking straight, so she just nodded her head a few times over, before sitting back as Izuku got up again. Her body was aching and burning with need. Her mind was completely alit and running a million miles per hour. "Izuku kissed me. Izuku loves me. He's so amazing. This is the best day ever. I love this. I love Izuku. I love Izuku." Izuku closed the door and came back to the living room while placing the bags on the table, before turning to her and smiling a little wider. "You're really adorable. That's such a cute look, Nana." Nana took a moment to fully realize how wide her smile was, plus how hard she was blushing along with some remnants of tears on her cheeks. He was quick to grab a napkin and wipe away her tears, before tossing it away from the couch. "You really are my #1 fangirl, Nana." It wasn't as much of a question or observation as it was a statement of fact. She simply nodded slowly and pushed herself closer to him. I always have been, Izuku. I've always adored you. You're the greatest, coolest, most perfect hero I know." Izuku held her, lowering his hands to her hips while her body jolted slightly. "Izuku, I love you." Izuku stalled for a moment but smiled and leaned in closer. "I know. I've always known. I thought you were getting over me these past 2 years, but tonight only confirmed it for me." Nana whimpered a little bit. She felt embarrassed knowing she had somehow outed herself long ago, but it was quickly replaced by the heartwarming feeling of knowing he hadn't rejected her. I still didn't mean for you to figure out." Izuku smiled a bit wider. "I figured that much, but you couldn't really help yourself, could you?" Nana shook her head immediately. Izuku knew pretty much everything there was to know about her, and he knew exactly how to read her. "I really couldn't. I just can't help myself. I've loved you for so long." Nana opened her mouth to keep talking, but Izuku silenced her with a gentle, loving kiss, making her sob gently before she slumped back again, panting and nearly sobbing off the high of Izuku kissing her again. "You would do anything for me, wouldn't you, Nana?" he asked simply, hugging her just a little. "Bobo. My biggest, most dedicated fangirl. My mentor. And, evidently, my biggest simp." Nana nodded again with her lips shut tight. Even with everything out there, it was still incredibly embarrassing just to get called out like that. "Anything. I would do anything for you. You deserve everything you've ever got, and I wish I could do more." Izuku kept looking down at her for a few moments, before finally leaning forward and getting just close enough to kiss her, but stopped just an inch away from her lips. "I know. And you've done so much for me already. I want to give back, but I know the only thing you want is to give me more." He moved his hands lower, pushing her skirt up with his thumbs and slipping his hands over her butt, making her instantly quake in his grip. She gave a short, squeaky sob while Izuku pressed into her, making her feel like she would black out as his muscular chest pressed against hers. "So muscular. I'm gonna die. This is amazing," she thought to herself, purring with delight as her chest burned with excitement and pleasure. "So I'm going to give you exactly what you want, by taking what I want from you," he confirmed, slowly leaning down before kissing her neck, before suddenly nibbling on it, making her spine feel rigid as she suddenly sobbed. "To start, I'm going to take your lips, then work down your body." He proved himself instantly by kissing her again, making her sob into his mouth as he pushed her further into the cushion, trapping her between the sofa and his own body. Nana was his. After all this time, she was finally his, and she couldn't have possibly been happier. Her wildest dreams and most intense solo sessions couldn't compare to this feeling of just getting groped and kissed by the real Izuku. He squeezed her ass a little harder, before pulling away one hand to reach her side and move it slowly up her body. He was really treating her as if she was just his to do whatever he pleased with. He continued kissing her for a full minute before finally pulling away, leaving her panting and sobbing as her head pressed against the cushion. He reached up and pulled the scrunchie from her hair, letting her hair fall down to the sides of her hair, getting frayed over the cushion. "Izuku, there is one thing I want. Just one thing, more than anything else," she mewed, looking pretty embarrassed as Izuku just smiled. "Finally," he said with a small chuckle, before quickly nodding. Please, anything you want. I want to be a mother. Izuku paused. A mom? Nana felt her insides freeze and ache out of anxiety. Why yes, I want to be a mother. I've always wanted to be, but I never took a break away from hero work long enough to make it happen. And I haven't ever met a man as worthy as you. Izuku kept looking at her, before his face split open into a wide, lustful smile. Is that what you think about when you're alone, Nana? Thinking about how nice it would be to retire to become a full-time mother? Nana mewed with delight and nodded again. She found her jaw twitching with excitement along with the rest of her body, making her buzz with excitement while forcing her to stay quiet. She wanted to say yes, to beg him for more, but instead found herself helpless. I'm so sorry for you, Nana. He said gently, leaning closer to give her a much slower, much more passionate kiss before pulling away by barely half an inch. You were always so busy, weren't you? Being the #1 hero with all eyes on you, then training me, and even becoming a teacher, always doing something for someone else. She squirmed as Izuku held her a little tighter, then gasped slightly as he kissed her on the side of her neck. She wasn't nearly as strong as she was years ago, and against Izuku's own power, her twitching didn't affect him in the slightest. And that's just the kind of person you are, right? You want to be a mom and take care of our kids, without a worry in the world, because you know that I'm going to take care of all of you. Izuku kissed her again. And I'm going to give you just that, right now. Eep, she squeaked, suddenly pushing herself back against the cushion. Wait, now? Right now? Izuku smirked and nodded. Right now. He confirmed, tracing a hand over her hips as she mewed softly. Izuku, my heart isn't ready, she begged in a helpless, high-pitched voice, before Izuku kissed her again, making her sob into his mouth. No amount of protest or excuses alluded to how she really felt. She longed for this. She wanted him more than anything, although if Izuku got any bolder, he might actually give her a swooning-induced heart attack. His hands traced lower and lower, finally reaching below her thighs and hooking his hands around them, and the moment she figured out what he had planned, he already heaved her up, standing while carrying her and kissing her silent. Finally, he pulled away just for a moment, leaving Nana trembling and sobbing in his hold. Wanna eat later? This is definitely more important. She answered, holding on tight as Izuku began walking away and towards her bedroom. And no, she squeaked out in protest, and Izuku stopped. No? My room is very embarrassing, I couldn't look you in the eyes again if you saw what was in there. She mumbled weakly, now pressing her forehead against his chest to hide her humiliated face. Izuku just continued holding her and bounced her slightly and leaned in to kiss the top of her head as he did. He lifted her higher until she was face to face with him. She was quivering and staring at him, her eyes were bursting with love, anxiety, and pure adoration. If you're sure, we don't have to. Nana let out a small whine as she thought about it. It made her heart flutter to know that she and Izuku were practically dating, and they were already in her home. We can go to my bed, just please don't say anything when we get inside, okay? Izuku nodded. Of course. I won't say anything. He promised, before walking again as Nana stared into his chest, trying to hide her face as Izuku finally stepped inside. She reflexively flinched as he opened it fully and slowly stepped in. She could feel the subtle shifts of his muscles as he looked around the room, but kept his promise and didn't say a word as he brought her over to the bed and slowly set her down, and she only looked down onto her lap. You're even cuter than I thought, Nana. He complimented earnestly. His hands went over her arms gently, reassuringly, letting her know that he wasn't going to judge her one bit. I don't think anyone could be a bigger fan than you. But that's alright, I don't think you want any competition, do you? What about your girlfriends? Nana blurted out. She already knew she had competition. She knew she had some advantages over them, like experience, being his favorite hero, and she wasn't super self-conscious normally, which changed whenever Izuku was around. He held her a few moments longer before chuckling to himself. A girlfriend? Where did you get that idea? Suddenly, Nana's lips shut tight as embarrassment began to burn in her chest. Oh, Nana. He sounded amused and sorry, then brought his hand up again and cupped her chin, lifting her up to look him in the eyes. There's only one woman for me. And I have her all to myself. Oh 11W woman, he means me, she squealed with excitement, letting the fireworks go off in her mind. All for you. Izuku kissed her again and placed a hand around her back. Everything you have, and everything you are is mine, Nana. I promise we're going to be very happy together. Nana held her arms around his back and allowed him to gently lay her down against the bed. I know I trust you, Izuku. I love you, and I always will. That's why I want you to have your way with me, to do whatever you feel like. Izuku nodded and crawled into bed with her. And you'll do whatever I say? To do anything you can think of to make me happy? Why yes, she answered instantly, almost squealing with excitement. In that case I want you on your knees, and to hug that pillow there. He instructed, pulling away for just a moment to allow her the freedom to crawl onto her hands and knees. He was pointing towards another one of her beloved cushions, a full-body Deku Dakimakura. So, she slowly crawled over to hug it. She brought it to her chest and laid her head against it, pushing her ass up and propped her knees against the pillow. Good girl, Nana, he chuckled, crawling over to her and holding her hips. Now, tell me what you do every single night. A room like this, and feeling the way you do, you must have some kind of routine when you crawl into bed. Nana meowed happily and seemed to purr with delight, shivering against the pillow. I like tea, taking a cushion, or pea plushie, or even a figurine or action figure, and I like kissing and licking them while I touch myself. I'm Sob your name, wishing you were here. Izuku gripped her harder in excitement and leaned a little further into her. That's adorable. I want to see you do it for me, okay? But no touching yourself, I'll be handling that tonight. Nana looked back at him for a few moments longer before turning back to her cushion. She had been in this position plenty of times all alone, and she found herself tongue-tied with embarrassment knowing he was behind her. Oh, Izuku, she sobbed, leaning forward to kiss the cushion right where his lips would be, then shoving her face into the middle of it, letting her face sink into it as she continued to kiss it. Izuku continued watching while holding her hips, before finally pulling one of his hands away to slip under her dress and press two of his fingers against her pussy through her panties, making her body hitch with sudden pleasure. I love you, she sobbed into her cushion, pressing against it even harder, grinding her chest against the bed as well. I love Izuku, I love you. Izuku began rubbing her slowly while looking down in amusement. If I had known you were like this, I would have come over way sooner. You're such a cute, horny simp, humping your pillow while imagining me doing whatever you imagine me doing to you. He kept touching her, then concentrated lower, pressing against her clit. Sob your fantasy for me. Tell me what you keep wanting me to do in your mind. Nana obeyed, pulling her face away from the cushion and pressing her cheek against the cushion, looking into the eye holes of his mask while sobbing as if she were talking to it. Make me yours own, me, break me, make me never wanna go back to my old life, and have a new one as your girlfriend. I've been wanting it for years, she said with a purring sob, kissing her cushion again. He grinned with excitement and satisfaction, pushing into her a little harder through her panties. She let out a short gasp and held it tighter. I want to be your girlfriend, I want to be the one you come home to, I want to have your babies, I want to cake kiss you, cook F for you, relieve you, I want to live for you, Izuku, please let me live for you. Izuku smirked as he continued fingering her, before leaning in to finally remove her panties, letting her pussy leak her juices onto the bed between her legs, before starting to rub her up and down slowly, parting her lips gently as her body jolted and quaked with pleasure. Then that's exactly what I'll give you, he said, finally pulling his finger away. She was left panting and sobbing softly as he stopped, leaving her body squirming and writhing slightly with pleasure. Do you want to be my girlfriend so badly? I'm going to test you first. You know, things that girlfriends should know how to do, he decided, taking her by the back of her head and guiding her up. First important skill of a girlfriend: slurping her boyfriend's mahood. Nana nodded eagerly, crawling up onto her knees. Oh, okay, she answered as fast as possible. She had a real shot. A shot at making every one of her dreams come true. None of the silly, asinine arguments she had in her mind about her shortcomings or flaws mattered. Izuku was going to take her, and that was all that mattered. I'll do it, I'll be a good girlfriend and slurp your mahood, I'll be a perfect girlfriend, just for you, Izuku, she promised with a small bow of her head, keeping it close to his crotch. A good answer, but it could be better, you know, he said, still holding his waistband up, keeping her away from his mahood. Oh, may I please slurp your mahood, darling? She asked while fidgeting in excitement. He smirked and gave a short nod. Much better. That's a good girl, Nana, he said, bringing one hand to her head and rubbing the top of her head gently, and with the other, finally pulled his pants down. Nana experienced falling in love for the first time when she realized how she felt towards Izuku. But now, she experienced love at first sight when he pulled his mahood out and hung it tauntingly over her head. Her eyes widened in shock and began to twinkle with delight as it throbbed over her. Izuku's mahood was just perfect. It was thick and long enough to eclipse her face as it throbbed. It was a huge, hefty monster that fitted perfectly with the rest of his virile body, which resembled a Greek god's. Oh wow, she gasped, now finally remembering to breathe. This is amazing. I should have expected this from you, Izuku. She always imagined Izuku being bigger than average, but this was just superhuman. He smirked and rubbed her head a little harder. That's certainly an ego boost. Now, she nodded slowly and stared at his mahood nervously. It was the same kind of nervousness she felt when thinking about talking to Izuku, but with a lewd twist and a bigger, heightened sense of expectation. She opened up and slowly pushed forward, closing her lips around the tip of his mahood and instantly sobbed with delight. He tasted better than she could imagine. It was powerful, virile, overwhelming her taste and smell the moment they touched. Nana mewed with pleasure as she began slurping on it, feeling her body fidgeting with pleasure for every moment she spent on his mahood. Izuku sighed with relief. Nana's warm, wet mouth took him slowly and lovingly, savoring and worshipping his mahood just as she always dreamed. He could feel her love and adoration with each movement and hear it in every sob. You're such a good girl, Nana, I love you, he said while finally sitting back, positioning himself so Nana would have to put more effort into gorging herself on his mahood. Nana, meanwhile, was beaming with delight. Her eyes seemed to actually twinkle and boom with hearts at his praise, instantly moving herself down harder and harder on his mahood. He loves me, I love Izuku, I love his mahood, I love everything about Izuku, I love you, she gushed internally, forcing herself deeper as his mahood powerfully stretched her throat, making her tremble with delight. She kept pushing down, spurred on by Izuku's loving and gentle pets and her own love. She had long since lost track of how many times she dreamt of this. Not just sleeping with him, but even just worshipping him with her mouth and listening to his praise. You're really good at this, but you're inexperienced, aren't you? You're just a natural, which is pretty cute and really hot, he said, rubbing over her head as she mewed and pushed herself further. Her throat was starting to strain against his mahood, but she just continued. It was a nice, pressing feeling that sapped some of her breath away. She remembered trying on chokers in high school, and they were pretty nice, but she found herself using sizes too small and getting hooked on the feeling, but quickly forcing herself to go cold turkey out of embarrassment. I should wear chokers for Izuku, I think he would like them on me, ooh, this is so fun, I wanna dress up for Izuku, put on the clothes he likes, maybe he likes beautiful gala dresses? Or raunchy, sexy pieces? Oh, I wonder if he has a lot of naughty ideas of what to put me in. Nana squealed internally with delight, redoubling her efforts as her tongue pressed against and worshipped his mahood. I'll dress in anything he likes, even kinky stuff like schoolgirl outfits or cosplay, anything and everything for my darling Izuku. She was more than willing for all of that, but the outfit she wanted most of all would be nothing except a frilly, cute apron, with a lovely ring on her finger and maybe an emerald green, strained choker. Just the thought sent a massive shiver down her spine, along with all the brought-on happiness of getting to slurp his mahood. Finally, after a minute longer of forcing herself down, she finally reached the base of his mahood with a strained and choking gasp, forcing herself to breathe heavily through her nose while her chin pressed against his nutsack. Such a good girl, Nana, you're the best, he congratulated with a small sob, pressing his palm against the back of her head firmly, keeping her down while she kept slurping him off. She didn't want to pull away, and if Izuku wasn't going to let her, that was even better. He let her go after a few moments longer, allowing her to pull away just enough to breathe deeply and push forward again, gagging herself on the tip of his mahood, which pressed firmly against the back of her throat. She started bobbing her head up and down on his mahood, loving how his mahood stretched out her throat and gagged her. GLLK GRK GLCK GRRK GRCK GLLK. Nana's mind became fuzzy as she began choking, filling her with his scent and replacing the sensible, high-thinking functions of her mind with thoughts of Izuku. Before she realized what was happening, she was rubbing her thighs together as her entire body spasmed with delight. Her insides tightened and throbbed around nothing, and while hypnotized by the taste of his mahood, she squirmed and came over her sheets, leaving her knees buckling beneath her. Izuku's free hand went low and below her chest, brushing his fingers against her breast before pressing his palm against her tender, fatty flesh. The pleasure made her spine shiver, and after a few seconds longer of getting groped, she had an idea. She put one hand up and tapped out against his lap, and he was more than happy to pull out of her throat, leaving her gasping for air as saliva connected her lips to his mahood in an unbelievably lewd display. "Are you okay, Nana? I didn't go overboard or anything, did I?" he asked, but she quickly shook her head. "Not at all. I just wanted to ask you to do something." She leaned back until her upper back went against the cushion again, and she took her breasts in both hands and pulled them apart. "Would you like to try out my breasts? I know you're a bit of a boba man, aren't you?" Izuku got over her almost instantly, placing one hand against the bed near her head like Kabaton, holding his mahood over her chest. "You know me so well, Nana. You're the best." Nana couldn't help but giggle and jitter, then biting her lip as Izuku pressed his mahood between her bobas. She hugged them around his mahood and held tight, making a tight and hot mahood sleeve made of her fat, cozy meat bags. Izuku looked like a giant from her perspective. He was powerful and towered powerfully over her body, and it only made her more excited. So cool. Izuku began rocking his hips back and forth, banging her bobas slowly at first, grinding his mahood against her breast and pressing his nuts against her bare skin, making her body tremble with delight. "You're prime girlfriend material, Nana, everything I could want in a woman," he said, rocking his hips faster as Nana began sobbing, shivering, and mewling from the contact. She squeezed her bobas around his mahood, loving how his burning mahood throbbed against her bobas. Even his mahood was powerful. She sniffed it again and shivered with delight, before deciding to open her lips again and closing them around the tip of his mahood as he thrusted forward. MMPH, she sobbed in pure delight after being able to taste it again after being cruelly deprived of it for just a few moments. "Oh, you seem to like this a lot, don't you? Then why don't you become my girlfriend?" he offered, in a tone too casual for what he was doing. It made her heart flutter again, filling her insides with pure delight to the point where she felt like she could black out right there. Love, lust, and adoration fueled all her movements rather than conscious thought, which got especially obvious with how much louder and sensual her sobbing got. "Ah, you like that idea a lot, don't you?" he teased, now stopping his hips to let Nanabo bang him herself as she slurped the tip of his mahood. "Then it's settled. I'll take you on proper dates, hold your hand, kiss you, give you presents, and do things like this whenever you want." Nana squealed with delight and her entire body squirmed with pleasure. "Although frankly speaking, I feel as though you might like it if we did this whenever I would like, right?" He patted her with one hand but pinned her shoulder down with the other. She sobbed loudly again, which only solidified the idea in his head. "You like that, do you? You like the idea that I'll just grab you at any time and take you? Like banging you the moment we close the door behind us, or bringing you on a nice movie date just to grope you and eat you out in the back seats." Nana redoubled her efforts again while excitement set her insides ablaze, like her lust became electricity throughout her entire body. "Be a good girlfriend, Nana. Be a good girlfriend and make me release, then I'll finally get to banging you," he promised. "I'll bang you hard enough to make up for all the time you've spent fawning over me," and that was all Nana needed. Of course, he could have just told her to blow him and she would have happily done so for hours, draining his balls for as long as possible. But with this promise, it made her go at it even harder and faster than before. She worshipped his mahood and kept slurping until she finally felt his mighty, huge mahood throbbing between her bobas and inside her mouth. Delicious, heavy, and creamy pre-cum filled her mouth from the tip of his mahood as it slid in and out of her lips again and again. It made her mind feel swimmy, molding her body and mind completely around nothing except Izuku and his perfect mahood. Izuku began thrusting again, breathing heavier as Nana dutifully worshipped and pampered his mahood, before finally he gripped her hair and hilted inside her boba mahood sleeve, until his hips and balls pressed against her breasts, pushing over a quarter of his mahood into her mouth before finally releasing. He throbbed even more powerfully than before, and slamming into her one last time before release began filling her throat. It was even heavier, thicker, and hotter than his pre-cum. Not to mention the fact that tasting it instantly made her release as well. She steadily gulped it down over and over again, finding another mouthful within moments to joyfully swallow. MMPH she sobbed heavily, forcing it down her throat even as it strained and threatened to force her to choke it down. Izuku's grip pulled her even closer, making her gorge herself on her mahood and pushing his weight against her further. He continued pumping release down her throat, forcing her to continue guzzling down his rich release. Eventually, he was finally able to pull away. His mahood throbbed as he pulled out of her mouth and sat to the side, letting her crawl up again. She licked her lips and happily got onto his lap, before giggling again as his hands went around her hips and held her ass in both of his heavy, muscular hands. Why you're so strong, Izuku, your hands are really cool too, so many scars, and so strong too, you're the coolest. Izuku, I love you, she declared as she openly rubbed her breasts against his wide, muscular chest. I love you too, Nana. And I'm about to give you everything you deserve. He said. I would ask you what you'd prefer, but you want to give me anything and everything I want. Therefore, I'm going to be taking you exactly how I want to. Now, and forever. Eek, she squeaked suddenly, feeling herself swooning with excitement at the promise. I mean, would why you really? Izuku smiled and quickly followed it by smacking her ass, making her entire body jolt on his lap while his mahood throbbed against her stomach. Of course I will. I'll do anything I want to you, whenever I want, and wherever I want to, and you're going to let me. More than that, you're just going to thank me and ask for more. He let go with one hand and brought one hand to her chin, then cupped her cheek and let her press her head against it like an adoring pet. Anything anywhere, at any time, that sounds like heaven. Izuku, please, love me, give me everything you've ever wanted to give me. Izuku brushed her thumb against his cheek and to her top lip, pressing it down slightly as she opened her mouth, licked her thumb around it, and closed her lips around it. I'm happy that such a lewd, loving woman is mine. She mewed happily and ground against him harder. Finally, he picked her up and stood up to the side of the bed, then spun her around and lifted her as she squirmed and squealed with delight. This is what you wanted. I won't treat you like a strong, respected hero, I'll treat you like a weak little girl who wants her hero boyfriend to use her body for his pleasure. She could feel it, especially as he used Black Whip to heave her legs over her head, leaving her bare pussy open to press his mahood against her cunt. She bit her lip as it pressed against her, and she whined with pleasure. Then, without any further prompting, he slammed her down onto his mahood, forcing over half of his mahood into her tight, clenching pussy. She squealed like a pig around his mahood, which forced all the energy and breath out of her body instantly. She was owned by Izuku. Her pussy was molding around his mahood, letting him spread her out and conquer her completely. But more than that, she was filled with the utmost of joy. Every nerve in her body was alit with raw pleasure, the kind only a man of Izuku's caliber can give her. His mahood, his strength, even the way he pushed her down on his mahood let her know that no one could hope to compete to him. Izuku, she screamed, looking down in shock, lust, and adoration as her stomach bulged obscenely as he pushed inside her. He hadn't even begun properly thrusting yet, but her insides were squeezing and burning around his mahood like a tight hole. Finally, Izuku began to pull out, dragging his thick, burly mahood against each inch of her insides, making her feel like his mahood was about to gouge out her pussy, and with another squeal she came over his mahood. Her juices squirted over her own bed and ran down his mahood, all the way down to his balls. He thrusted back inside her, making her body jolt with pleasure as she yelped in surprise and pleasure. He pushed even deeper inside, making her insides tighten even further around him. She couldn't believe a simple thrust could make her feel so good. She didn't want to believe it either, because it meant she was depriving herself of such a feeling for years. She would never forgive herself for it, not unless Izuku banged her to make up for all that time right away, and with his second thrust, he completely made up for that time 100-fold. Her body bucked and was forced against his body with a loud cry of pleasure. He kept thrusting into her, bouncing her body helplessly on his rod, which split her insides and completely claimed her body as his. You feel amazing, he sobbed into her ear while bouncing her up and down. We'll be doing this every day. I'll be banging you until you can't take any more. Yes, Izuku, thank you, please bang me every single day. Treat me like an onahole to dump your loads into. I'm no mentor, or teacher, Oh, or anything respectable, I'm just my star pupil's release dumpster. Izuku was happy to keep pounding into her, taking joy in her sobbing, squealing, and begs for more. Each thrust went deeper and deeper, until he slammed against her cervix with his powerful mahood. She couldn't even squeal with pleasure. The feeling forced the air from her lungs and made her gasp as her insides squeezed around him and she came once again. Her body was jittering uncontrollably with pleasure as he continued ramming her. She didn't even care that she went so long without this. She didn't care that Izuku was supposed to be her beloved pupil. She didn't care about anything at all. All she cared about was Izuku taking her body for their combined pleasure. Each thrust made her feel more sensitive, and her orgasms hit her even more so. Her entire body felt raw and oversensitive, hitting her with a kind of pleasure that shouldn't be possible for a mortal man to give her. And yet, Izuku decided to surpass her expectations yet again and break her mind and spirit on his fat mahood. Go ahead and confess to me again, he ordered. I want to hear you say how much you love me with my mahood splitting you in two. Izuku, I love you so much. Why, you're the man I love the very most, you're the love of my life, she confessed with a cry of pleasure, before he rammed into yet again and made her release and squeal like a pig. I want to be your happy, slutty, loyal girlfriend forever and ever. Of course you will. You told me point blank just how much you simp over me. I wouldn't even have to bang you or make you my girlfriend to make you mine forever, he chuckled, before leering over her shoulder and sprouting black whip to snake around her tongue and yank it out of her mouth, making her sobbing more sloppy as well as start drooling over her ambobas. He pulled her closer and leaned over further, then began to French kiss her. It was sloppy and crude, making them crane their necks slightly and press their tongues together, swirling and slurping lustfully. Nana, of course, was mewling, sobbing, and squirming into Izuku's mouth. Even after being banged by Izuku, the thrill of kissing didn't die out at all. In fact, it only inflamed it further. Finally, Izuku pulled away, leaving Nana panting desperately for air. I love you, Nana. Be mine forever. Nana's insides exploded, and she squealed with joy and pleasure as she came once again. Yes, I love you, she squealed as her entire body shuddered. Izuku smiled wide and genuinely, less of the dominant role he was taking and more the adoration he felt towards her as a hero. Then beg me to release inside you, Nana. Beg me to make you mine and fill you up. Beg me to make your dreams come true and make you a mama. Please release, Izuku, release inside me, make my pussy yours forever, fill my womb, make me pregnant, make me your wife. And at that, Izuku slammed Nana's body down as hard as he could, slamming her ass cheeks against his hips, and with the sudden slam his balls against her clit with a final, wild swing. She threw her head back, pressing her head against his shoulder as she came before getting hit with another storm all on its own. Izuku's release. She would have thought he would be a little worn out by the last orgasm and be way less voluminous, but she was terribly, wonderfully mistaken. His mahood throbbed powerfully and stiffened inside her pussy, making her feel like it was expanding inside her before it finally exploded inside her. A hot, thick, and massive turn-off release inflated her womb. It pushed her insides outward and made her stomach bulge almost obscenely, before filling each and every inch of her pussy, before finally flooding out of her. She felt so obscene and slutty having his release gush out of her pussy like this, but she still loved it. Her eyes went crossed as her tongue stuck out openly and drooled out onto her bobas, and release was still getting pumped into her pussy. Release went over her thighs and onto the floor with a thick, heavy sound. Izuku's grip was powerful and intense. She could feel his muscles tense up and hold her still. He was proving that he was her successor and her superior, by banging and manhandling her into total submission. And of course, her admiration only grew. Nana lost track of when one orgasm started and another ended, but the constant pleasure and pressure building up inside her made her mind become fuzzy even to the point where words failed to reach comprehension, and everything in the world, even in her own head, was just fluff. All that existed was lust and pleasure. The details of her room was mush and abstract, creating a blindfold of green. The only thing that mattered was how Izuku battered her insides with his mahood. She let out a weak, whining sob of pure bliss as Izuku finally stopped after an untold amount of time. He leaned forward and kissed her cheek again, slightly pulling her back from her orgasm-induced high. He said something in her ear, but all it sounded like was a fan blowing into her eardrums, or like she was having a conversation underwater. She giggled in response. She must have looked so silly or even disgraceful while being stupid and manhandled by her beloved protégé, but she didn't care in the slightest. She was Izuku's, and Izuku was hers. What else was there to care about? Nana had known Izuku for 6 years. She had been Izuku's girlfriend for only 1 year. She was his wife for 2, and would continue to be for as long as they would live. She found that she adapted quickly to the life of a housewife. She retired from teaching officially a few months after hers and Izuku's official first date when she found out she was pregnant. And when Izuku graduated, about 5 months into her term, they got a house together and almost immediately went about their wedding. Honestly, it went by in such a blur that Nana almost found herself wishing they had slowed down so they could spend more time as boyfriend and girlfriend. Maybe if they had gotten together sooner, they could have gone on more after-school dates and naughty stuff at school. Oh well, nothing more to be done. She just mentally shrugged and decided to simply make the most of the present instead. Like how right now, she was making dinner for her and her husband Izuku. Just the thought made her chest swell with joy, her cheeks went red, and she began giggling to herself. The giggling fit made her stall, but she eagerly went back to chopping vegetables and beef for the night's yakitori with a chipper expression. Maybe a side of fried rice pork is his favorite, she decided, before giggling again and slightly bouncing on her heels. He'll look so excited, and maybe give me kisses of appreciation. Nana dropped her knife on the counter, cupped her cheeks, and began squealing like a little girl in pure excitement. She was even turning on her toes as she giggled and squeaked to herself. Yes, as it turned out, 1 year of dating, 3 of marriage, and countless nights of lovemaking weren't enough to stop Nana from acting like a middle schooler thinking about her first crush. In fact, getting to see every side of Izuku and see him thrive as Japan's #1 hero only made her more enamored with him. She began roasting the veggies and searing the meat. Next was the fried rice, and decide which kind of sake or wine would go best with everything. Normally it was hard to make such an elaborate meal with their family, but thankfully for them both, their triplet firstborns Ishitiko, Kurakami, and Karuko were out at a sleepover with their cousins Auntie Ochako's kids, and their second-born twins Hanbun and Marigoto were spending a night with Izuku's mother. While the kids were all pretty young, and Nana admittedly had a hard time saying goodbye even for the night, there was a good enough reason for it home date night. She giggled again to herself as she finished preparation for the fried rice, which was right when Izuku let himself in the house. "Nana, I'm home." She immediately leapt out of the kitchen and towards the door, and turned the corner to see Izuku taking off his cape and hanging it up. Nana swooned on her feet at the sight. He looked so rugged yet energized after a long day of hero work. So manly, so confident, so cool. Welcome home, darling, she greeted, placing her hands nervously behind her back. She knew she had a few stains over herself after cooking. She was getting much better at cooking, but she still had a few spills here and there. "Did you have a good day?" Izuku nodded with a smile, before finally turning to her and stopping dead. He looked her up and down, then smirked. "Well, much better now. Eager for date night?" Nana giggled and looked over herself. She was wearing her favorite outfit, a green apron with white polka dots, and a Deku mask sash embroidered into the rim which barely covered her chest, and absolutely nothing else. "Why yeah, I figured why you would like it. I was watching the news, and it seemed like a slow D-Day, so she ended with a murmur and giggled to herself. "Ah, you're such a sweetheart. Come here, darling," he said gently, walking over to hug her in one hand and kiss her gently, which made her heart sing as her body shivered. She urgently sobbing into his mouth and hugged him with both hands to kiss him back. Then, Izuku's other hand came around and grabbed her bare ass, and gave it a firm squeeze that made her yelp into his mouth. She was already melting into him and burning with excitement. She was burning the moment she gave him a kiss goodbye, said she loved him, and wished him good luck for his day that morning. Finally, her brow furrowed slightly as she finally let go and forced herself to pull away, panting heavily as she did. Her expression was halfway between pure excitement and stern, and she even licked her lips afterward. He had eaten one of the cookies she had baked yesterday as a snack on his way home. Dinner is cooking. I can't let it burn." Izuku smirked and licked his lips. Izuku bought her chocolate cherries on his way home yesterday, and she had been snacking on them all day. "Oh? So if I go and help you finish dinner sooner, I get to enjoy all of this sooner?" He stepped forward again and grabbed both her ass cheeks, making her entire body hitch as she squealed with delight. "Eep, why yeah, help me and we can have some more fun on our date, okay, darling?" she promised. Nana was completely red by now, and Izuku took no short amount of pride in making her act this way as well. Izuku nodded and finally let go, letting Nana, still conflicted, walk towards the kitchen, shaking her bare hips and ass at Izuku as she walked away. He looked down as they walked, admiring the way her ass moved as they went. Finally, he looked up as they reached the kitchen, and Izuku noticed she was looking over her shoulder the entire time and at him, still smiling lustfully. He smirked and stared her back in the eyes, then reeled his hand back and smacked her ass while keeping perfect eye contact. Nana yelped in surprise and pain, and stopped in her tracks as her knees trembled beneath her. Her insides were boiling and squeezing around nothing but, most importantly, longing for her husband. Is something wrong, Nana dear?" he teased. Nana stayed silent for a few moments, before turning around to him. Her eyes were alight with excitement and her lips were tight, and the moment Izuku registered her expression he silently braced himself, because right at that moment, Nana pounced on him. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.